Hello, and thank you for watching this weather update brought to you by Agrible, the makers of Morning Farm Report. My name is Eric Snodgrass, and I am the Senior Atmospheric Scientist and co-founder of Agrible. February has been an interesting month for the United States, as the eastern half of the country has seen incredibly cold weather, while the west has been quite warm. As you can see here, the first 21 days of February have been 4 to 8 degrees colder than normal in the eastern side of the country, while the west has been 4 to 8 degrees warmer than normal. Focusing on the eastern United States, the start of this week will be brutal to say the least. After seeing many new records for cold temperatures this past week, a large high-pressure system is building south from Canada, as seen in the image on the left. This high-pressure system is accompanied by Arctic air that will once again introduce sub-0 degree Fahrenheit temperatures to a large section of the central and eastern United States. So as we get ready to start a new week, we're preparing once again for an impressive outbreak of cold air. We will have more on the temperature forecast coming at the end of this video. As we prepare for the start of the 2015 growing season, we want to take a close look at water resources as we transition into the spring. Over the last week, there have been two large winter storm systems that have pushed through the south central and southeastern parts of the United States, bringing a large amount of snow to locations from Missouri to Virginia. Some locations received over a foot of snow, while points farther south in Tennessee, northern Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia received quite a bit of freezing rain. The animation that you see here is showing you the accumulated snowfall over the last 2 weeks. And it's clear that these big winter storm systems have increased the snow amount across the United States quite significantly. If we take a step back and look at the last 30 days of accumulated precipitation across the United States, we can see that these winter storms have brought some much-needed winter precipitation to eastern parts of the Corn Belt, which had, up until this point, had relatively dry weather. This map shows the percent of normal precipitation over the last 30 days, and it helps us identify regions where soil moisture content might have been an issue as the spring thaw arrives. Although parts of Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota look a little dry, the end of the last year was generally wet through these locations, which has kept the soil moisture relatively high despite the lack of winter precipitation. The good news is that parts of Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, and eastern Colorado have seen quite a bit of precipitation over the last month, which will help keep the drought that is set up in Texas and Oklahoma from spreading into these regions in the short term. Speaking of the drought, here's a look at the latest USDA drought monitor. Once the newest version of this map is released later this week, I expect the drought to fade across the Ohio and Mississippi River valleys, but continue to grow out west. Even after significant rain in Northern California in early February, this region is once again experiencing an expansion of its severe to exceptional drought conditions. Nevada is now up to 18% of the total area in the state in exceptional drought, the highest category. We need to keep a very close eye on this region as the rainy season is coming to an end and climatologically drier conditions are expected to settle in. Due to the divided nature of the winter weather patterns, with cold conditions persisting out east and warmer conditions persisting out west, snowpack in the Intermountain West has been far below average for many locations. This map is provided by the Western Regional Climate Center and shows the percent of average for the basin average snow water content. With only a few exceptions in parts of Montana and Wyoming, most reporting stations are showing significant deficits in snowpack. As a result, irrigation efforts will be strained in this part of the United States as the growing season nears. So let's take a look at the model forecast of precipitation over the next 10 days. Animating here is the Global Forecasting System's model forecast of accumulated precipitation. In the near term, significant snowfall is expected across parts of the mountains in Colorado, Utah, and northern Arizona. We can also see another large rain-producing system that skirts along the Gulf Coast Monday and Tuesday, and then a second system pushing through the southeast United States on Thursday. Toward the end of this animation, we can see that the end of this week and the start of next week has precipitation impacting the parched west coast, and yet another winter storm hitting the Ohio River Valley. We need to keep a close eye on the forecast of these two systems, as they could bring precipitation to some regions that could definitely use it. Looking into next week, we are expecting another round of Arctic air to invade the United States. With the exception of Alaska and Florida, this cold air will really work to keep much of the United States far below normal as February ends and March begins. It may be the second week of March before we see a significant shift in our weather patterns, bringing warmer weather to regions which have been cold for over 30 days. Finally, to look out a few months into the forecast for March, April, and May, we will examine the National Multi-Model Ensemble's projection for temperature. Using these maps as general guidance, we can see that the most prominent feature is the anomalously warm conditions along the western parts of the United States. This warmth is primarily driven by the behavior of the sea surface temperatures in the Pacific. Since last summer, weak El Niño conditions have persisted across the equatorial Pacific, and due to a recent shift in sea surface temperature anomalies near the west coast of the United States, we expect El Niño-like conditions to persist this year. These warmer sea surface temperature anomalies have a high correlation with the temperature in the west, which is why I have a lot of confidence in this temperature forecast. Notice that currently, the NMME is not forecasting a large cold bias across the eastern two-thirds of the country, which suggests that the weather patterns will eventually break down and the nearly consistent cold air outbreaks from Canada across the east will subside. We will need to be watching this particular forecast closely, because if it verifies, it relieves some of the concern of a late start to the planting season due to very cold temperatures over much of the Corn Belt. As always, we at Agrible will bring you the latest and best weather forecast information through our morning farm report so that you can efficiently plan your operations. We thank you for your attention and hope you look forward to our next weather update. Thank you.